Tonight is hopefully the least sordid new chapter in two very sordid political sex scandals. One Republican, one Democrat, two names their parties wish they had never heard of. Let's start in Nevada, where this spring Republican Senator John Ensign resigned all of a sudden, nearly 2 years after admitting that he had been stooping a staffer of his who was married to another staffer of his. Senator Ensign quit just before the Senate Ethics Committee reported on the affair. That report said Senator Ensign may have violated the law when his parents wrote a check for $96,000 to the husband staffer of the wife staffer he had been stooping. After the Ensign resignation, Republican Congressman Dean Heller was appointed to fill Ensign's seat. Mr. Heller had represented Nevada's 2nd District as a member of Congress. And that led very briefly to the exciting prospect that Republican Sharon Angle might run for that newly open House seat to replace Dean Heller. But alas, no, she did not even get a chance at it. Through some wrangling in court, the Nevada Republican Party won the right to name their candidate for that seat without a primary. And the Nevada Republican Party, surprise, named Nevada Republican Party Chairman Mark Amaday. National Republicans have spent $600,000 trying to hold this district in the Republican column. It has only ever been held by a Republican. On top of the official Republican Party money, Karl Rove's conservative PAC American Crossroads also kicked in another $250,000 to help Amaday. The Democrat in the race is Nevada State Treasurer Kate Marshall. She is trailing in the latest polls by double digits. Voting in this one will not close for another few minutes, but we can tell you that in early voting before today, Republicans did appear to be winning the battle for turnout by 19%. Now on to New York, where voters are choosing a replacement for Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner. Congressman Weiner stepped down in June after tweeting naked pictures of himself and then lying about that. The seat Mr. Weiner held, New York's 9th, that seat has not been occupied by a Republican since before the Great Depression. Democrats picked State Assemblyman David Weprin to run for it. He's the white guy in the white shirt trying to dance under the campaign sign in this old video. The Republican in the race, former TV executive Bob Turner, has been selling himself as the antidote to President Obama's policy on Israel, which apparently has played well in this heavily Orthodox Jewish district, even though Mr. Weprin, the Democrat, is also a real hawk on Israel. Mr. Turner has also criticized the Democrat in the race for saying he backed the right of an Islamic community center to build in downtown Manhattan, the so-called Ground Zero Mosque. Seeing the Republican candidate ahead in the polls in this race has had national Democrats spending $500,000 in recent days trying to save the seat from becoming a casualty of Anthony Weiner's nudismo. I made that word up, nudismo. Polls in New York closed not quite an hour ago in this race. We are eagerly awaiting the first returns. Joining us now from Queens, New York, is Andrew Siff, reporter for WNBC. Andrew, thanks for being with us. I know you're at Republican Bob Turner's campaign. How do things seem there, and how excited are people?
People are pretty excited, Rachel. Former Mayor Ed Koch is on his way here. He's a Democrat who crossed party lines to vote for Bob Turner. He was one of the voices who, at least according to the polls, has been successful in convincing voters along this Queens-Brooklyn border, this quirky district, to send a message to President Obama by voting against David Weprin, who's been a loyal Democrat in the city council and the state assembly. As you mentioned, the polls showed Bob Turner ahead by 6 points, but then the Democratic money kicked in. So there was a lot spent over the weekend, and the turnout, the vote machine, was out in force today with 1,000 Democratic volunteers knocking on doors, sweeping across Brooklyn and Queens. A lot of people expect it to be a lot closer than that final poll number. We could be looking at some very, very late results in this race to replace Anthony Weiner. Rachel?
Andrew, do either of the candidates in this race have a real claim to having been a particularly good or particularly bad candidate? Were there major gaffes or major successes that marked either campaign in this race?
I think Democrats privately will say that David Weprin was a very weak candidate, but candidly they'll also say that they thought they could probably almost rubber stamp the win. Republicans haven't won a seat here since 1920, so it seemed like almost any name they picked would win. It quickly became apparent that wasn't necessarily the case, and then over the last few days it became apparent that might not be the case at all. So I think there might be some hand-wringing about could they have picked a better candidate. a more prominent candidate, a more politically disciplined candidate. David Weprin didn't particularly make any flubs, but he doesn't have a charisma factor which might overcome some of the high-profile endorsements that Turner got, notably Rudy Giuliani and Ed Koch.
And Andrew, I understand that the Turner campaign has alleged voter fraud, and they got a judge's order impounding the absentee ballots in this race. What's that about?
Well, that to some degree is insurance just in case things are too close to call or that Weprin ends up with a very, very small lead late tonight. That would allow Turner to not concede at all. There are about 3,000 absentee ballots out there, and they're alleging that some of them got sent to people who had passed away or no longer lived at their addresses. That happens in almost every election. But in this case, since the possibility exists that it'll be really, really close, why not impound those ballots? They did get a judge to do that. That means that the final tally can't be certified if the total is within that margin of 3,000. So it's sort of insurance just in case they don't have to concede if it's really close tonight. Rachel?
Andrew Siff, reporter for WNBC. That was very clarifying in what has otherwise been a confusing situation, Andrew. Thanks very much tonight. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Again, two special elections tonight, one in Nevada, one in New York City. The Nevada polls close in a few minutes. In New York, the polls are closed, but we are still awaiting first results. We'll be right back.